All right, folks. I think everybody's eager to get started, so I think we should as well. Welcome, everybody. I know there's going to be some stragglers in, and we have this recorded for us today. For those that couldn't make it, we've gotten some notification that there are a lot of people, in fact, that are looking to see this after the presentation that just couldn't join us today. But it is my privilege to have some distinguished guests with us today on Friday to talk about the PPP loan information session presented by Greater Philadelphia Veterans Network. I want to quickly introduce myself and then quickly introduce the panelists in front of us. My name is Alec Cherchowski. I'm the founder director of Greater Philadelphia Veterans Network. We are a 501c3 organization. Our mission is to make Philadelphia one of the best destinations for our veterans. We work with employment, leadership development, and entrepreneurship and help our businesses grow, as well as bring in our community to support by hiring or buying from veteran-owned businesses. So where we are today, as we kind of kick off the year in a relevant conversation, is there's a lot of veteran small businesses out there like everybody else. And we owe it to our community to kind of share information related to the new version or the newest PPP loan information session out there. So I wanted to kind of invite the guests that came today, some amazing people here. I'm going to go around and kind of, everybody can give a quick introduction about yourself, that would be fantastic. Rather than, I have good bios here, but I've just realized it's sometimes better to hear from somebody else than just me reading it. And I'd love to for you all to introduce yourselves. So I'm going to do quick names here. We have Matt Hein from First Trust Bank, Amy Anderson from Price Turner CFOs, and we have Shannon Degiglio from the Small Business Administration. So Matt, please introduce yourself.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for having myself and giving First Trust an opportunity to share some information around PPP with you all. I'm the Managing Director of Commercial Banking here at First Trust Bank, which helps small and medium-sized entrepreneurs and businesses grow and meet their goals and objectives. Part of that is our SBA team. So I'm looking forward to sharing some tips and tricks and some things we've seen through the application process around PPP specifically that I hope helps all of you on the call.
Fantastic. Amy.
And good afternoon, everyone, as well. Thank you for your service. To start off, I am a CPA who does not do income taxes. My company, Price Turner CFOs, was formed to help small businesses to get the most out of their business, get the most cash flow, and understand what is going on in their business from a financial perspective. I work with small and medium-sized businesses to provide everything on the accounting department, all the way up to CFO services, the projections, the cash flow, etc. I love what I do and my clients love me. One point on this slide is Anderson is spelled with 2 S's. I like to say that extra S means a $sign, but if you type it an email to me at amy.anderson with 1 S, you won't find me. So make sure it's got the 2 S's. Sets me apart in many different ways.
My apologies, Amy. That's a good point out there, so I will debrief myself afterwards to tell myself that I should do that.
Everybody, the New Jersey motor vehicle people said, oh, when they handed us back our licenses way back when, they handed it, it said, we corrected the spelling of your name.
There you go. I like the way that's put on.
I think so, yeah.
Well, it's either you misspell it or in my case you mispronounce it. So we're all doomed, right? So Shannon, Shannon's been a great supporter of our organization, as well as Matt and Amy, and Shannon and the organization go back all the way back to 2012. She's been really as a person that serves and gives back and as the SBA person. So Shannon.
Hey, yeah, my last name is always mispronounced, so that's fine too. Degiglio, no one will remember it, that's fine. Alex, thank you for getting that correct. I think it takes that many years to pronounce it correctly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I work for the Small Business Administration. We cover the eastern side of Pennsylvania. I work in lender relations, where I'm kind of working with like the outreach of all of our lending programs. And I'm also the veteran business development officer. So I'm sort of in charge of like all of the veteran training programs. And, I'm out there really just trying to outreach to veteran businesses and provide them with resources to help them be successful in their business. I've also been in the National Guard here in Pennsylvania for the past 18 and a half years. And so I'm looking forward to getting out the next year and a half, and I'll just continue to help vets, but in this capacity. So glad to be here. Thanks, Alex.
Absolutely. So we'll get off and running, and I want to turn it over to Amy, and then just guide me through the slides if you can on this, and happy to kind of walk through the process with you. Bear with me 1 second as I'm trying to make sure that the slides are there. There you go.
Thank you so much. Okay, I have to put this on for everything, okay? These materials are intended to provide general information, should not be acted upon without professional advice tailored to your specifics. All right, so thank you. Next slide. Appreciate that. Okay, so many of you have probably heard of the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program. There was a program back in the March-April timeframe. It changed about every day, almost every hour. I will say the banks, and kudos to both Matt and to Shannon, because they were able to make this work. And the government decided that this worked, and they were able to keep people on payroll, not get people onto unemployment. And that's the main purpose of this. You have to remember that. So the Economic Aids Act, which was done in very late December, did modify the existing PPP. It created also additional funding for the EIDL, which is the Economic Industry Disaster Loan, and other government programs. Well, the biggest thing on this, it does reopen that original PPP program with billions of dollars for the second draw, for even first draw, and I'm going to go through that. It does expire in 2 months, so there is a time frame on this. What's also important is the shuttered venue operator grant. So if there are people who have independent movie theaters or ballet theaters or things like that, there's special items on that. I'm not going to talk to that, but realize that there is money available. And then more importantly, there is special attention for any type of minorities, veterans of a 501c19, low income. And then again, just the PPP itself is tailored to small businesses. Next slide. Okay, so this is going to be really quick. Again, I'm not going into a lot of detail. I've done these presentations and taken an hour and a half just on all the details. I'm not going to do that here. We are going to leave it open for questions. So if you have them, just write them down so we can get to them at the end. What's happened is there are really two options now with the PPP. There's what's called the round 2 draw 1, which I like to refer to as R2D1. Go forward. Which with the round 1, what happened is that is now become available again for those people who did not apply in the first round, back in April, May, June, etc. This is for corporations, LLCs, single members LLCs, the nonprofits, self-employed people, so those who are independent contractors as well, and sole proprietors. And it is open for new applicants. So if those, if there was a veterans organization of a 501c19 or a 501c6, which is a nonprofit association, all of those people are now eligible for this round 2 draw 1. The round 2 draw 2 has more restrictions on it. So this is meant for those people who had applied already, who got the funds and who have spent them now. There is available funding again. This now is with it's more restrictive though with this round 2. Again, I refer to this as R2D2, with less than 300 employees and also a gross receipts reduction test. So this test says I earned 25% or more in 2020 versus the same quarter in 2019. Okay, that is the major test in this round 2 draw 2. All right, so you really have to make that. But again, the funds are available. So if you're showing that reduction in gross receipts, the money is available for you. Next slide. The calculation, and this is for whether it was round 2 draw 1 or whether it's round 2 draw 2. The calculation is important because what is there is the annual payroll. So you have to look at your annual payroll costs. And those annual payroll costs are going to look at 2019 and 2020. And whichever one is higher, you want to take because that means you can get more funding. It's going to include the monthly average payroll cost, which is really defined as your gross wages plus healthcare, which if you paid for healthcare for your employees, and any retirement benefits paying for your employees. And then also the SUTA, the state unemployment tax. Then you calculate a monthly average, which is why you divide by 12. And then you have a multiplier, which is 2.5. So in essence, 2.5 months of costs. For those who are in the hospitality industry, however, they recognize that that has to be longer. So that's a multiplier of 3.5 months. There is an exclusion related to anybody over 100,000 annual salary. And there's specifics now with how to do partnerships and how to do self-employed. This was a part of it. Some of this went back and forth and back and forth. They've now said, this is what you do. So on the partnerships and on self-employed and for any type of LLC. Next slide. The forgiveness. The forgiveness is very important. This is one of the things that also changed. So on round 1, if you utilize those funds, you had to do the payroll costs. And again, it had to be the 60% of payroll costs for the forgiveness and 24 weeks. That all was the same. What has been added in this round is the fact that you can now add in supplier costs and expenses for operations. So specifically identified are cloud-based computing, our human resources software, the operations costs, even accountants like myself are added in as a potential expense to utilize these funds. Remember though, that you have to have at least 6% related to the payroll. And again, those payroll costs are calculated and it is 24 weeks. So the calculation was based on 2.5 months. You now have almost 6 months to utilize those funds. So it is very, very forgiving. And if you have any problems with that, you really should be able to use those 24 weeks to get the full forgiveness. Another note is many people receive the EIDL grant. That does not reduce PPP loan forgiveness. And one other thing I forgot to mention here, I don't think I have it on here, is it is not taxable income for the forgiveness, and you can use the payroll expenses as a tax expense for the year. And one of the things on the forgiveness is you file it through whoever gave you those funding. All right, I think that's it on the slides. Oh, okay, this is just a simple one on the forgiveness application. It is this simplified process for those under 150,000. This was also what was new. They now have a simple one where it is a payroll amount, your initial, but you do not have to have the full FTE, i.e. full-time equivalent. You don't have to prove that you kept everybody on board. There's also this easy process if you're self-employed, a sole proprietor, no employees and such. And then the 3508 form is the big one with all the full calculations tables and such. And that is if you have a PPP over 150,000. Next slide. Okay, back it up. And that is a very, very brief overview of the PPP. So I'd like to turn it over to Matt.
I appreciate Amy. I think what we're going to do is If you have any questions right now, please put them in the chat. We're going to address them at the end. And since we have a more intimate group, I think we'll probably even do a open Q&A as well. So if you have any thoughts during this whole process, any feedback for any of our speakers, we welcome them to put them in the chat in there. As Amy alluded to, there is a lot of information out there to kind of keep it at a high level. And some of you may have seen some things that are relevant to you. So please put it in the chat. I'm gonna turn it over to Matt Hein with First Trust. Matt, I'm just gonna give you control. Just give me 1 second.
Thanks, Alex.
I think you should be able to share your screen, Matt.
Yep, sure can. Let's see if this works. And hopefully my screen's being displayed now.
Perfect.
Awesome. So before I get started, again, I just want to introduce myself, Matt Hein from First Trust Bank. I'm going to take all of you through just sort of the look and feel of what it's like working with a lender through this process. I want to first say on behalf of First Trust, thank you to all our veterans on the call for your courage and sacrifice, not only for our country, but now as business owners and employers, which certainly requires a tremendous amount of courage and sacrifice as well. So thank you for both of those things. So I'm going to take you through the process to apply, the timing, generally speaking, how to deal with some unresolved issues that may pop up through the process, a couple quick tips and tricks that are helpful in applying, and then finally just share a couple resources that we think may be helpful. So first on the process, pretty simple, but important to understand. You'll be applying for a PPP loan through a PLP approved lender. So you can call your bank or call a lender or do some research online to find someone that's offering PPP loans. Before you start the application, I think it's incredibly important that you understand the eligibility, the calculations, and the documents you'll need to provide. When you apply, you're attesting that you understand those eligibility requirements and that you need the funds. Just shows you how important it is to have a resource like Amy Anderson or another accounting professional that can share with you these details. They understand them and can get to know your business enough to realize your eligibility. So once you do feel confident that you're eligible to apply, you're going to find the lender and you're going to apply. Most of us now are offering a digital application, so you would fill out that application. After you submit your application and the supporting documentation that the lender requires, they're going to review it to make sure it reasonably is accurate to everything that the lender can do. And then they're going to submit that forward to the SBA. Once the SBA gets your application, they're going to review it for eligibility. They're most likely going to deck it up against a few different databases and ensure that the application is accurate and that you are eligible. Once that occurs, you're approved. So the SBA will send an authorization number to the lender. The lender will have to notify you that you're now approved by the SBA and it's time to close. Once that happens, there'll be some documents you'll most likely have to sign or complete. And once you sign those documents, the loan will close and you'll get your funding. So it feels very much like you're borrowing money from a bank. The only difference is the bank is working directly with the SBA to ensure that you're eligible. What's happening is the SBA is guaranteeing the loan to the SBA that'll be repaid. And the SBA is also deferring the payments of that loan. So that's why the lender's working directly with the SBA. And you won't really have any interaction with the SBA. You'll be working directly with your lender. So the timing. So this could take upwards to 2 to 3 weeks. If you put it all together, it may take you a couple days working together with your lender to get the right information in and for them to review it. We're seeing right now, the SBA review is supposed to take 48 hours, but just because of the volume of requests, we are finding that it has been taking longer. However, I see that period shortening more and more as we move forward. And then from there, your lender should take a few days to prepare the documents, get them signed by you, and then close and fund your loan. You should be prepared for a longer process. It could take a little bit longer. If the SBA, through their validation and eligibility check, find some issues or concerns, they're going to reach back out to the lender and there might be some back and forth. So just be prepared that this process isn't overnight and it could take upwards to a few weeks to get your money funded into your account. So one of the things I mentioned is that we are finding in the second draw that the SBA is reviewing every application. That wasn't necessarily happening in the first time, the first round. So for second draw loans and first time loans in this round, the SBA is doing a number of eligibility checks. And I just want to talk about some things we're finding from that you could expect. After we're submitting loans to the SBA, they're doing their validation check, and then they're getting back to the lender, meaning the bank, us, saying that the request is on hold. We're finding that some of the reasons for that would be that there was an unresolved issue from your first draw loan. There might have been some inaccuracy in the data in the application, like your tax ID number, your entity name, or the business address may not be accurate, or when they decked it up against one of their databases, they found there may have been an issue, and it may just be a mismatch. It may not really be your business, but it's triggering some red flag that's asking them to require more information from the lender to move the loan forward. If you get a notice from your lender about this, first of all, take a breath. This is just part of the process. And I think that it can be nerve-wracking sometimes when you filled out everything and then you're told there's an issue when you feel like the data is accurate. It's okay. Your lender will work with you and they will communicate directly with the SBA. So there may be, for example, if you need to prove your tax ID number, it may be as simple as providing a tax return showing that, a filed tax return showing that your tax ID number on the application is accurate. Your lender will work directly with the SBA and they'll let you know what's required to try to move it forward. In some instances, you may have to withdraw your application and resubmit with accurate information. That's why it's so important when you're applying the first time and inputting data into an application. Don't rush through it. Take your time, double check it, make sure your data is accurate. So what we're finding, there's some common errors that are happening, or some tips that I think you should just pay attention to if you haven't yet applied. First, you want to work with an experienced SBA lender. Unfortunately, there are tons and tons and tons of lenders out there that are, trying to serve by providing PPP loans and the opportunity to apply through them. But some of those lenders don't have the resources to support small businesses. So if you can, you have to work with a PLP lender, and then two, you want to work with a lender that's available for you so that if you do have questions, if you're looking for guidance, you have someone to talk to. I think that's really important. As Philly's hometown bank, First Trust is available. Every person that applies, we have a lender or someone on our line, whether it be a branch manager or a commercial lender, that will speak directly with you as a borrower and help you through the actual process of applying. And I think that's really important. Secondly, if you're applying for a second draw loan, meaning you got a first draw loan back in the spring and now you're applying for a second draw, it could be easier if you work with your original PPP lender, because they already have, if you're using the same payroll documentation as you did in round one, they already have that documentation. So it may reduce the processing time and the application time for you. However, if you're not happy with the experience you had with your first draw lender, you can certainly go to any approved lender to apply for a second draw PPP. Just make sure that you have your SBA loan number available when you apply, because they're going to ask you for that. And that can be found on your original loan documentation. Next, you want to understand the new expenditures eligible for forgiveness. So Amy took you through those briefly, and I thought she did a great job capturing the key expenditures. And you certainly want to reach out to your tax professional or other resource if you want to learn more about that. And I'm going to share some resources in a second that you guys can use that will certainly help you spell this out in more detail. I mentioned before, accuracy is key. We're finding that sometimes folks fly through the application, wanting to get in line to get their money as quickly as possible. We're not running out of PPP money. So I think it's important that you just take that extra step to ensure that your application is accurate, because that'll make sure your application is moving quickly through the process. When uploading financial statements, so if your lender is requiring you provide financial statements for the second draw loan, especially, you're required to show proof that your revenue was reduced by 25% in one quarter of 2020 versus a like quarter of 2019. And there are some other variances to that you can learn through the resources. But if you have to show proof of that reduction in revenue, you must sign those financial statements. So we have a lot of borrowers that are inputting, they're uploading financial statements into their application, and we're pushing it back because they have to sign the top page of it. So it's just a little trick to make sure that you do if you're going to upload a PDF of a financial statement proving that revenue reduction. Gather and retain and keep your documentation. So anything that you're using to calculate your eligible amount, any information that you're saving and collecting for your forgiveness application, it's really critically important that you keep that application and retain, or that documentation, and retain it for some of it's up to 4 years. The first round was up to 7 years. So just incredibly important. You never know when there's going to be an audit or a check, and you may have to provide that information. We found, and we've been talking to our customers about keeping it in a separate file altogether so it's easy to find. But it's important that you retain everything that you're using to do your calculations. And finally, as we've learned, watch for updates. The program continues to update. It's typically in favor of small business owners and borrowers, and there's clarifications and rules. So it's important that you just find a resource that you can trust that can continue to keep you updated as the rules change and things continue to move forward. So some of those resources, we have a resource center at firsttrust.com. Like Amy's S's, I'm Mathew with 1 T, and First Trust is First Trust with 1 T in the middle. So make sure you hit firstrust.com, and you can find our COVID Resource Center right in the middle of our page. It'll say PPP Resources. You click it, and you're going to find a ton of great stuff to help you, around eligibility requirements and the process itself. The Treasury Department website is a great place to find the interim rules, and certainly the SBA.gov website has really trusted information. So if I can say anything, there's a lot of articles, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of media around PPP, and sometimes that information isn't totally accurate, but I will say that you will find accurate and up-to-date information on these 3 resources. So with that, I will stop share and say thank you for your time and again for your service. And we at First Trust are here to help. So whether you're a First Trust customer or not, we're looking forward to the opportunity to meet you and see what we can do to help you. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt, with 1 T. That of course, there's a theme going on this morning as I should be more conscious of that as well. But the information out there is so useful. Matt, I think the way that you've laid it out is probably one of the best I've seen to date. And it really, really feels homegrown, just the way that you said it. It was like a conversation sitting on the couch, and I truly welcome that, as the information truly helps step by step in guiding people of the process, expectations, and which is sometimes very hard to understand when you're reading all these documents, is understanding timeline and everything. So with that, I wanted to turn it over to Shannon. If anybody wants to, they can pin Shannon for speaker view. I'm going to do it here so she can share a little bit about the SBA. Shannon.
Hey, okay. Yeah, a lot of great information provided so far. I don't want to take up too much time. I just, maybe wanted to add a couple tidbits as to some other things that are available through the SBA. When the Economic Aid Act came out, it provided some other type of relief options for small businesses. And, we spent a lot of time talking about PPP and EIDL, and, those are kind of like our 2 really, really big programs, but there's just a couple other things too that I want to make sure that everybody's aware of as, you're looking forward into doing your business planning. The first is the Shuttered Venue Operator Grant. So this one really provides for a lot of like live performer type venue places. And there's basically right now $15 billion in grants that are going to be available to those types of businesses. So we're talking about like venues that have like fixed seating in them, like movie theaters and live venue operators, talent reps, all those types of different things. Even museum operators and zoos and aquariums who are meeting specific criteria are going to be eligible to apply for this grant. So For anyone who may know somebody who's in kind of this space, they may want to look at the PPP2 versus the SVOG grant that's coming out and seeing what may be more advantageous to them. So basically, that will qualify you for 45% of gross earned revenue, up to $10 million. And then there's a set aside of $2 billion for small operators that have up to 50 employees. So that's definitely out there. It's not open yet. You're not prohibited from applying for it. If you had a PPP loan in the past, you just can't get the new PPP loan that came out. So that's out there, and there'll be more information that will come down the line. The one thing I wanted to mention is all of our information is changing regularly, daily, hourly. So the place to go for all of your most up-to-date, accurate information is sba.gov/coronavirus relief. So check there daily for any updates, things that are added. As some of these programs are rolling out, you'll see that they become open for applying. Right now, we really just kind of are trying to go through all of the logistics of how these programs are going to open up and what they're going to look like. So the one thing with the SVOG is that it really does apply for a broader use of funds. So, if you're in that space and you have somebody, who may want to use these funds for more than just payroll for the bulk of it, you might want to look at SVOG. So that's coming out. The other big thing is the SBA debt relief. So basically what this provides for is for those businesses who are seeking funding between now and the end of the fiscal year, so September 30th. If you obtain an SBA loan within that time, the SBA is going to pay the first 6 months of principal and interest payments. So you'll have 6 months of free payments if you end up taking on an SBA loan. And this is all, again, it's based off of the availability of funds. Right now, the way that it looks like it's rolling out is that depending on when your loan was approved is going to really determine how much debt relief that you received. So if you were someone who had a loan approved before the last cutoff of September 27th, and it wasn't fully funded yet, and you missed out on the 6 months of free payments last time, well, you'll get the 6 months of free payment this time. So that has, I believe, already started rolling out. And those people are working with their lender and the lender will notify them if they're eligible for those payments or not. So yeah, that could be a really big thing for small businesses who are obtaining any kind of SBA loan. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about 7A, which is the regular loans that you would work with your lender through, like First Trust for SBA. So, your lines of credit, and so forth. So, you really want to have that conversation with your lender and see if, that's something, if you're looking to take on funding, a line of credit or whatever, right now may be a good time to do it. The SBA has waived all of their upfront guarantee fees. So that's normally like around like a 3% fee that the SBA charges upfront every time you want to do an SBA loan. So that fee is completely free until the end of the fiscal year also. So you're saving money on that. We're increasing the guarantee percentage up to 90% on these SBA loans so that, lenders can, basically take a little bit less risk when making the loans to you as the business owner. So look out for some of those advantages of things that you might be able to take advantage of in addition to PPP, in addition to EIDL. Because, as we look to grow our businesses in the next year and get through this, taking on some of these debt programs may be, a good choice for you. So I think it's just important that I wanted to mention that quickly. And the last thing I really wanted to talk about was just the targeted EIDL advance and how that's rolling out. So I know that a lot of people had gotten the EIDL advance in the beginning. Well, this time they're actually putting together a targeted EIDL advance. And I wanted to just quickly let everyone know, because there's been some confusion on this, that EIDL advance is only going to be available to businesses who missed out on it the last time because funding ran out. So if they only received a portion of the EIDL advance, or or there was just they missed out completely on it, they'll be contacted by somebody from the SBA who's going to reach out and make sure that we make whole on that, and we can give you that EIDL advance that goes up to $10,000. And for those of you who weren't familiar with that the last time, it's basically an advance, a grant of money that was given out to small businesses last year by the SBA to kind of help get money into your pocket, as the pandemic ramped up. So other than that, if you're located in a low income community and you've also had a 30% reduction in revenue, you'll be contacted by the SBA. If you had an EIDL advance and you meet that criteria, you may be eligible for the second round of the targeted EIDL advance. Okay, so those are just kind of some of the programs that I wanted to talk about that the SBA had. I also wanted to just drop in the chat box a file that I have that has all kinds of veteran organizations, mostly here in Pennsylvania. Some of them are from out of state, but there's a lot of things going on right now as far as, programs that are available to veterans, like for grants, and there's, like Shark Tank competitions going on, in addition to the one Alex does. Sorry, Alex, but there's some, there's definitely a lot of things that are out there that, are worth taking a look at, worth getting involved in. There's a lot of networks that are looking to invest specifically in veteran-owned companies. And, so I know, SBA doesn't endorse all of them, but I, want to share them with this network so that, you can look into them on your own and just, decide if they would be a good fit for you and your company. So I'll stop talking and, open it up for questions.
Thank you, Shannon, for that. I'm putting you three on the screen to bring you back together. And I appreciate all that. And I think at the end, you really struck a chord there that most people don't think is, we're so busy with our businesses. We're so busy grinding day in and day out. Sometimes we forget that the resources, there's a lot more layers in the SBA, but in addition, really contributing what you did there is sharing about the resources of other organizations outside. It's a .org, it's a .mil, it's the competitions, the grants, the partnerships. We should think all differently today as, if we're looking for help financially for our businesses, we got to look at every means possible, depending on what we need. Is PPP enough? And if not, is it another partnership with another business? We've seen it on a personal level, just kind of before we open it for questions, we've seen it really in all areas where people now are forming relationships with another business, bringing in a partner, bringing in another person. So when they're looking at their business and they're looking at the potential for growth, they look at PPP loan as, of course, an advantage of what they need, but it's also eye-opening of what they need to do in the future for their business. Is it the right time to bring in a partner, to sell, to merge, to do anything like that? And have those further discussions with people that are on here about the benefits of just not ahead of and forward of what the PPP loan is presenting itself today. So the first question's from Walter, and does the PPP differ for all nonprofits? And I think, Amy, that probably question is for you.
So the PPP is eligible for the 501c3s, the C6s now, and then the 501c19. So if you are in any of those categories, then you are eligible. And the calculations are the same with the number of employees. So the biggest issue there is you may not have any employees, but you have everybody's volunteer. That in that case, because it is based on payroll, you will not be eligible.
Okay. and this may be, and feel free, I'm not sure who to direct this to, but it sounds a little bit the same theme with the word tax on it. If someone didn't apply for the initial round of PPP, will they be able to qualify based on 2019 taxes? Thank you, Jerry, for that question.
So again, the question is, if they did not apply in round one back in the spring, you are eligible to look at round two and look at both your 2019 payroll taxes and your 2020 payroll, not payroll taxes, excuse me, payroll. Now, again, those costs are not just employees. So if you are an individual LLC or something, you want to take a look at, because you are self-employed, your net income for the business would be considered part of it. And again, you want to look at the 2019 tax return to identify that. So there are a lot of like, okay, we're eligible here, we're eligible there. There's a lot of, well, if not here, maybe over there. So if you've got some specifics, we can take that offline and I can help you walk through that.
Absolutely. Thank you on that. And please, after we do these questions, we're going to have a couple time for opening it up. So there might be 1A, 1B, 1C. We don't want to time out everybody. We got a full hour today. So we'll go through the list here, and anybody else that's got another layer of questions, please feel free to chime in. So question from Sam, probably for you, Matt. How do you delete an incorrect upload form on the application? And maybe you may know that or not, and maybe that's a little bit more detailed.
It's going to vary by lender. It's really what your lender's process is. So if you're a First Trust customer, the best thing to do is reach out to your contact at First Trust. Every one of our customers has a relationship manager, a branch manager, an RM, a business developer that they know that I can commit to that. So reach out to that person and they can walk you through the steps. We do have a messaging function and feature in our application as well. So you can message directly to our folks that are reviewing these applications, and they can, show you how to do that as well. If you're with another lender other than First Trust, I think you got to reach out to that lender directly. If you've submitted something that's inaccurate, you do want to reach out to your lender as quickly as possible so that they don't submit an inaccurate application to the SBA and create a whole heck of a lot more work to do. So I'd say if you do have something like that, you want to reach out as quickly as possible to your lender to remedy it.
Great. We're going to go to the last written question, then we're going to turn it out to the audience as well. Then if any, and then we'll wrap it up with the speakers for any last things they want to say that they may have missed. From Kyle, if I'm understanding this correctly, if you applied and received PPP EIDL previously, and unless there was a reduction in revenue in 2020, one quarter compared to 2019, then you cannot get the round two?
Correct.
Okay.
It's a good news, bad news, guys. If you did not have the revenue decrease, that's great. Good news. If you did not have the revenue decrease, you don't get the PPP. So.
That's a very good question on that. With that, I'm going to open it up, continue with Kyle. Kyle, do you have a follow-up question on the one that you asked that's a little bit more detailed, or did we answer your question?
Sorry, I was typing. I'm like, this will be much faster. No, that pretty much answered it. A caveat, which I think the answer is still no. That's even if you were a new business, i.e., there was either nothing to really compare it to in 2019. It's still just, hey, you, even though you were new, you made positive from zero. Tough luck, right?
Yeah. You had to be in business as of February 15th of 2020. But yes, if you were new and then all of a sudden you took off even a little bit in 2020, less than you had wanted, but still it's difficult to say. But the question is, then how did you get the PPP in round one if you were not in business in 2019?
All great questions. That's what
Well,
it all confuses me, to be honest.
You had to be in business by February 15th of 2020. So if you were in business in any January and February of 20, before the 15th, then you're eligible. So the way that those new businesses are calculating it is on the past 12 months of their average revenue. So it's difficult. I think we're seeing a lot of businesses who are really not making the cut with the 25% revenue reduction by going through that calculation, who had just opened up in 2020. And I've worked with a couple of businesses so far on this, and we haven't really come up with a good answer, because the bank, and I don't know if Matt, you want to speak to this, but they want to look at 2019. What if there's no 2019? It's difficult, right?
Right.
To
Yeah,
get
there's-
to.
I don't have much more to add.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's one of those things that it just wasn't specifically, it seems like this round wasn't specifically advantageous for the newer businesses that came out in 2020. So what I would just recommend is just review, the calculation on our SBA website to just come up with your calculation. But yeah, that they're looking at the past 12 months of payroll. You would still be eligible. It just may be a lesser amount than what you would have gotten if you had 2019 to compare to.
And we have the contact information, I provided it in the chat, and we'll do it in the follow-up as well. I have it in the last slide, but rather than show the last slide, I put it in the chat. So for everybody's contact info is there. Reach out to us as well to kind of, if you missed that, and we'll get you connected with everybody on there. Anybody else that wrote questions that have a second follow-up to it, or anything new that's on the top, please take this time, with these regional experts, chime in, and everything's a good question. So, this is the unknown right now. So if anybody has any other questions?
Yeah, a little bit on the one that I said about filing PPP based on 2019 taxes. So I'll give you the real scenario here. I've got, unfortunately, they're not in the Philadelphia area. It's a non-for-profit out on Long Island that services families that have children on this autism spectrum. Pandemic hit, she had to lay her person off, basically stuck her head in the sand and didn't follow proper advice. So now the second round of PP comes out. I'm coming onto the board trying to help her get things straight. So she's complaining about not having any revenue, but basically for the past year, she's been on unemployment and such. Will they be able to take her 2019 taxes and show her that I had a couple people on staff? I was paying overhead expenses for our office and everything. And will that be enough for her to qualify for this new round of PPP? Technically, I know you probably can give me a gospel type answer saying, yeah, it's going to go to approved, but.
Matt, you want to take that one?
I think that she should apply. So there's what they're trying to do is uncover a period that they can use an example of what a normal payroll would be like, and then ensure that you have the funds available to make that payroll during a time in which your business is impacted by COVID. So it sounds like she's in that situation. She could take an 8-week period, an average period from 2019, and use that to quantify what her eligible dollar amount of payroll covered is, and then apply. So I think as long as she's still in operation, and she's going to employ this person, then she'd be eligible with her 2019 number to apply.
Right. It's paying her salary, paying the person who was working as a receptionist, the rent for their office that they were in as well too.
Yep.
Because she was able to maintain paying the rent somehow. I don't know how she did it, but.
Did she pay herself in
remember,
2020?
During the pandemic, she hasn't paid herself.
Got it.
Yeah, remember, the issue is and she's probably not in this situation. They've got to be under the 100,000. Okay. But usually nonprofits are not that high. So, you want to look at the tax, the total payroll costs, not including rent or anything, because the calculation is based on the payroll costs in 2019. Because she didn't have anyone in 20 or for most of 20, she's really going to probably benefit from using the 2019 tax return. And again, remember, it's got the calendar year. And then Didn't have any revenue. So that's going to be easy to prove. And she should be okay.
All right. So even though this is the second round of PPP, she's got to follow that 25% drop in.
No,
No.
she doesn't.
Oh, okay.
Because she didn't, if it's her first time borrowing PPP money, she's not required to show any revenue reduction.
All right.
Yeah,
Perfect.
if I said that, I'm sorry. Yeah. Sorry to confuse it. Too many rules to remember in the head.
Welcome to the world of finance.
So it sounds like your borrower should apply.
Okay.
Mhm.
Great. Thank you, Jerry, for highlighting an area that's important and for helping that organization as well. Shannon just posted another PPP how to calculate. There's a couple attachments on there, so if for the attendees, I'd take the opportunity to download what's in the chat as well for kind of resources that are out there. I know we typically go back to backs on things. So I want to give a couple minutes back to people if they don't have any other questions as they prep for maybe their 1 o'clock. But I'm going to go around the room real quick to kind of last minute things. And Amy, you got your hand up, so we'll go with you first and just go quickly around if any closing thoughts on every of your specialty. Amy.
Just another thing I've been seeing, because a lot of my clients have different banks. And again, I don't know what First Trust is requiring, but a lot of them are requiring signed documents from the owner for proof. Again, to Matt's point that he said before, is they are doing a much more thorough job of validating everybody up front, which is good. And it's to be expected. So if your bank does send back to you, just a point that Matt said is, if they send it back to you, don't worry about it. It's just additional documentation that they're looking for, and it's all good. Okay. And my comment then is just thank you guys for being here, for being interested. More appropriately, thank you everyone for your service. And if you need me, Alex put my information, my contact information in the chat. So please reach out.
Matt, anything you want to add, or Shannon? Go ahead.
I'll go first. I'll just echo Amy's comments. Thank you everyone for the time today. And certainly First Trust is available to help. So if you need our help, you can reach out to us. Alex put my contact information in. I'll get you to the right place. And if you visit firsttrust.com and say you want to talk, we'll get right back to you, and we'll have a banker close by to help you with anything you need, both PPP and just in how you want to help your business survive and grow. So thanks for the time.
Absolutely. Shannon.
Yeah, just again, thank you for having me. I was happy to be on here and be able to talk for a little bit. And I know some of this stuff may seem confusing. I was on a webinar earlier, and a person said to me, like, my business, I bake cookies. I have no idea what you just said. So we definitely understand that this could feel a little overwhelming, but that's what we're all here for, to help. Please feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'm more than happy to help explain any of these programs to you.
Well, I'm honored to be around 3 great people that are taking their time to help our community of veterans to succeed. So thank you, Amy. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Shannon. And thank you all in attendance, and all those that will be watching this. We post this on social media afterwards. That'll be available. So feel free to share it with others. So have a great day. Good luck, and have a great year in 2021. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you, Alex. Bye. Bye, everyone.